when hinges creak in doorless chambers, and strange and frightening sounds echo through the halls. Whenever candle lights flicker, where the air is deathly still, that is the time when Thor is present, practicing his podcast with ghoulish delight. Welcome, foolish podcast listeners, to the All Things Thor Halloween Special. And heed this warning. The podcast will materialize only if you remain quietly seated at all times. There's no turning back now.
This is a Halloween story I have. It's a memory from my childhood that I will never soon forget. And I'm hoping that sharing it will be kind of fun. And some of you might have done this same thing, or your moms or your dads or whatever. I don't know. I certainly know that it was very unique at my time. And it's an experience as I said, will remember for the rest of my life. And the whole evening went something like this. My mom had just taken me out of public school after fourth grade, because I was kind of getting into some trouble. You know, I was a comedian in school, and I didn't take school very seriously at all. And teachers always had this on my report card. Although, once again, I got great reviews about my creativity and my artwork, and I was, quote, well liked by my classmates. But at the same time, I didn't take school seriously, and did a lot of things that concerned the teachers, as far as tests and things like that, where I would just say, forget it, I'm not going to do this test. I'm going to draw a picture on the back. And it didn't sit well, when my mom had parent-teacher conferences. So, anyway, my mom decided to put me in private school when I was in fifth grade. A very strict private Catholic school. And I remember finding out about it when, in the last day of school, when I finished fourth grade. Was it fourth grade? Yeah, fourth grade. And my mom, said, hey, yeah, now it's summertime. By the way, you're going to another school in the fall. I was like, what? And she said, yeah. So it's a different school. I think this will do you good. And I went to this type of school, and I think it's going to be good for you. So anyway, I was a little disappointed, if not greatly disappointed. But I took it like a boy, and a boy man, and I decided, I was going to give it my best. So when we started in the fall, you know how it is to be a new kid. It's tough. Some of these kids have been in school together at this new school since kindergarten. And I was just coming in fifth grade. So they all knew each other, and suddenly it was me. Me and one other student who became my best friend. His name is Steve. He's probably the only person I'm going to mention by their real name. But he became truly a best friend to this day. And so my mom, got to be friends with some of the other mothers and things. And she was trying to figure out a way to, get me to adapt to this new school. And so starting in September, October came pretty soon, and she got the idea that we were going to do a Halloween party and invite, maybe 8 to 10 other boys, boys and girls, at that age. It was odd to mix them, because we weren't quite, I want to say, comfortable with each other yet. So she said, okay, we're going to do a really fun Halloween party, and I'm going to help. We're going to decorate. We're going to do some really fun stuff, and it'll help secure some of your friendships and help you transition, into this thing, because the mothers of these kids, she really liked a lot. And so we threw a party, and I won't get into all the different details because they weren't really different than any other kid's party. Things like she took dry ice and put it in a bowl of punch and did a bunch of different decorations. And at the end of the night, we all went trick-or-treating in the local neighborhood that I was in, because she actually threw the party on Halloween. But there was this one game that she came up with that she said she played when she was a little... no, actually, she wasn't a little kid. She did it for her brother, I believe. I think so. That's how it went. If my mom was here right now, she would correct me as to what was right or wrong. But I think it was for her brother, my Uncle John. And the game was that you all got in the pitch dark, and all of your fellow party members got in the pitch dark, and there was a story that went with it. And part of the story was that, or the main premise of the story was that you're sitting in the pitch dark, and what gets passed around from hand to hand are the internal organs of of this fictional character as this story plays on. And in this case, I still have the script from the recording that we played as we played this game. And let me share with you how it all turned out, because it was certainly memorable, if nothing else. So, imagine this party we were all dressed up. I remember some of my friends, what they wore. I remember one of my friends was the Headless Horseman, and he came up with this thing with a box where it looks like his head was missing, and all kinds of different things. And at the point that we played this game, my mom did a pre-recording, and she did the voice of a witch. And so all the kids got into the garage, and the doors were shut, and it was pitch dark. And my mom, a very creative person, by the way, an artist who inspired me, she aimed a sprinkler hose at the only small window that was off to one side of the garage, so that it looked like rain falling on the window. And of course, there was the very subtle ambient play of light. I can't remember how big the moon was that year. But it was just a very pale blue light, but still not enough for you to see anything in that dark garage. And we're all sitting in chairs in a circle. And it was way too dark to see each other. And so we had an old reel-to-reel, the brand was a woolen sack tape recorder. And it actually belonged to my grandparents. So my mom, who was a former, as I've said before, a model, and she did a lot of TV commercials and different things to support me as a single mom for a while. She was really good at voices, especially when she would read books to me when I was a little kid, trying to get me to fall asleep. Anytime she'd read a kid's storybook, she'd try to imitate the voices, and it was, quite magical. And she came up with this script based on, again, this thing that she had heard when she was a teen and when she did it for brother. And it was this game, and as I said, it's supposed to be these body parts passed around that would belong to a witch. And it turned out that even though this was just sort of like a filler for my party, this game turned out to be a highlight to my Halloween party, and which eventually erupted into a frenzy of horror, laughter, and chaos that my friends talked about for years afterwards at that school. So, as I said, my friends I'm going to kind of describe and bring you into the whole experience. My friends and I are in the dark, this quote rain on the window, and my mom slinks in the darkness and sits close to me with a tray of things that she pushes play on the old tape recorder that she did her witch voice story on, pre-recorded it. And she even had background music, or sound effects from, as I recall, thanks to the Disney record that was, I think it was called the Sounds of the Haunted Mansion. The record was playing in the background as she got into character and she spoke. And the story I'm gonna share with you, and I'm also gonna share with you what was going on at the same time as the story was told, that my friends weren't aware of, but that were part of the texture of the experience. So this big thunderclap you can hear in the background, and this organ pipe, that Disney organ pipe going on this record that was kind of going, and this witch starts to talk, and she giggles in fear. And I'm not going to do a witch voice because my voice is too deep to do a witch voice, but I'll do it in my voice, and you can imagine my mom telling this, and hopefully can get into the experience. So she starts out and she's cackling, and this old witch starts to talk as we're all these kids are sitting in a circle in the pitch dark, kind of not knowing what in the world's about to happen. And it starts out like this. It goes, long ago in days of old, I was alive, so I've been told. My ears heard the flutter of a bat's wings fly. Now, there's nothing. They're all severed and dry. And at that time, we passed around dried apricots that felt like withered, dried ears. Like mummy ears. So everyone's kind of going, ooh. And the story goes on. My heart. Oh, how I miss it, beating deep in my chest. Now remains still in eternal rest. And at that time, my mom handed me this little tray that had a peeled tomato, a wet, room temperature peeled tomato, slippery and soft. And everyone was to touch it and squeeze it. And they did. And you heard everyone going, whoa, oh my God. You know, and it was just, yeah, everyone was just like starting to get really creeped out by this. And that was the intention. And the story goes on in the tape recording as my mom in a witch voice says, my eyes, they once opened like jewel-covered lockets, and now in your hands, removed from their sockets. And what got passed around next was peeled grapes in this little tiny bowl that you felt with your fingers that felt just like eyeballs. And everyone's going, oh my God. You know, and at this point, you know, you got to remember these are, I can't remember how old I was in 5th grade. You know, you're not very old. I mean, what are you, like 11 or something? I mean, 11 or 12. So you're still pretty immature. So, and it continues. The witch says, my poor veins, which once flowed blood, red and warm, now they lie cold, with maggots they swarm. And then my mom would handed me, as she was squatting in the darkness, a bowl that had cold cooked spaghetti and cold cooked rice mixed together. And it was slimy and damp. And it felt just like veins, infested with maggots. And again, the kids start to just, you know, everyone is just freaking out. And then I'm going to leave out a few because it went on. You know, for the sake of this story, I don't want to go into all of the things that were there, but I'm hitting the main points. And then it ended in, and last of all, my feeble brain. If you knew me then, I was insane. And then the witch would go, ah. And at that point, my mom handed me what was a softly cooked head of cauliflower. So it felt like this squishy, brain-shaped thing on a plate. And everyone's just like going, ah. Well, in the course of all this, of course, we had already had, like, each of us a number of pieces of cake. We were throwing down this punch my mom made, with apple juice and whatever, grape juice and Hawaiian punch and all this stuff. So we were just like charged with sugar, and some candy. So everyone was massively out of control anyway. And about now, sheer chaos in the dark starts to happen. And the kids are screaming and they're laughing and they're tussling around, off of their chairs. And in the roar of this, I can hear this choking sound. I hear one of the kids go, choking and gagging. But you can only hear it barely above the volume of the shrieks and laughter. And then I heard this unmistakable sound of a kid obviously throwing up. I mean, this is in the pitch dark, by the way. And so my mom, squatting in the corner, finally gets up and decides to flip on the one light bulb, that's in this garage. I mean, we're talking about, a garage that didn't have lights like they have now. This was in the 70s where, a garage usually had one or two light bulbs. Some of them you just pulled a chain on, turn on a light. And the lights go on, and I remember looking around, at the kids, some standing, some sitting, and it looked like what I would describe now as a pressure cooker that exploded in a kitchen full of people, that had food in it. That there was spaghetti that was thrown all over the place, hanging from the hair of some of the kids. There were food body organs half squished on the clothes and faces of my classmates, and just absolute insanity with these kids. Again, all the overstimulation, candy, sugar, all that kind of stuff. Everyone just lost it during this whole thing. And the worst part, you could say, was, remember I said some kid gagged and choked and lost his cookies. Well, it turns out, in the darkness, he must have been screaming and his mouth wide open. And one of the other kids, likely across from him, who will remain nameless, although I had suspicions who it was, in the course of the darkness, when the peeled eyeballs were passed around, had thrown a peeled grape, across the way. And this grape must have been a very, talented grape, because it knew right where to go, and it went right, making its way into the open mouth of the kid that was sitting across the way, and ended up gagging on it, and almost went down the poor kid's throat. When I think back on it now, I mean, the kid could have choked badly, but luckily it just went back far enough that he gagged and he puked, And that's what we had heard, and that's what we later figured out happened. But despite the lunacy and the aftermath of this whole thing, the laughing and the fun, it just kept buzzing the entire evening. I just remembered it just felt like Halloween, We were in costumes. And even though there was chaos, there was constant laughter, and
Oh, yeah.
it was amazing. What I wouldn't give to go back, even for an hour, to experience that again. And even though my mom had a hell of a mess to clean up in the garage that Halloween night,
Right.
it surely was the perfect way for a new kid to make an impression in his new school,
Oh, heck yeah. I'm
I
sure.
suppose. And many of these kids I've kept in contact with to this day. And
Not to be forgotten anytime soon.
some of them remember that. It's funny. Some remember some
That's
kind
really
of
cool.
remember parts of it. I remember the whole thing because it was my Halloween party. And it certainly was a Halloween party I will never forget in my lifetime. Happy Halloween,
Oh, I can't see how you
all
could.
of you, and I hope
Yeah, that is memorable
guys.
with a capital M.
remember the spirit of the best Halloweens you've ever had, and you carry them on. Pass them on to everyone today, because, it's kind of fading. I know there's reasons. There's been things that have happened that make people scared of Halloween now. But it really started out as a very magical thing, and a holiday that I looked forward to all year round. So happy Halloween. Be safe. Be scared.
Oh, same here. Favorite one.
And above all, have fun. From Thor.